Hi, viewers. Welcome to Teens Career Telescope. This is a talk show which brings to light the life of different careers for teenagers. So, in this show, the main objective is to showcase the reality of different career options to teenagers in a simple way so that they are able to relate to it, understand if they are truly passionate about those careers, and consciously take decision if they want to pursue in the career option that they are considering. So we are going to cover some aspects which will not be found anywhere in the internet or social media because these are going to be real time specific to different career options. So stay tuned till the end. And today we have Dr. Devaprakash, who is an assistant professor at the Department of Aerospace Engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. So it's an honor for us to have him here with us because I would not be able to find a more better person who has a lot of experience in aerospace and aeronautical engineering who can explain with an intent to help teenagers. He has before this current position, he was a postdoctoral research associate and he has obtained his B degree in aeronautical engineering from Madras Institute of Technology. And in 2000, um, he completed his MIT undergraduate program in MIT in 2010, and then he has also did his doctorate PhD as well in aerospace engineering in 2019. So he has also worked as a scientist in the integrated flight control systems in the Aeronautical Development Agency in Bangalore. So actually, as you would have observed, I am actually finding it difficult to explain because he has so much experience, so much accomplishments in this field of aerospace engineering. So I'm really glad to have Devaprakash here with us in this call. Welcome, Deva, and thank you so much, first of all, for taking time to uh, actually address the viewers and teenagers here who are keen to explore the career in aerospace engineering.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prasad. Uh, Thank you for the opportunity to be part
Yes.
of your career guidance show.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's our pleasure. And
yeah,
you'd have observed I didn't do the best job in terms of introducing your profile because
that,
there's so many things which I couldn't. But I want to ask from yourself, tell me about yourself to our viewers because they can feel that they're really hearing from an expert in this field.
yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm Devaprakash, and I'm currently an assistant professor at IIT Madras in the Department of Aerospace Engineering. So I've been here for the past 3 years, right? And before that, I did my PhD in aerospace engineering and postdoctoral research, again in aerospace and ocean engineering from Virginia Tech in the US. And prior to that, I worked for 4 years in Aeronautical Development Agency, which is an organization that's part of Ministry of Defense, Government of India, tasked with the um, objective to design and develop the light combat aircraft, right? The Tejas, as we all know it, right? And I was part of the control law team, right? So essentially designing I mean, designing the brain of the aircraft, right? So I was part of the team that was responsible for designing the control laws, which are sort of the brain of the aircraft, right? And before that, I got my bachelor's in aeronautical engineering from Madras Institute of Technology, Anna University, right? So that's a brief biographical
Wow.
information about me.
Wow.
Uh,
As I said, you are the apt person for this conversation to share about different career options because you
Very
also
humble.
experimented with different options. You worked in an agency like ADA, and then you also right now in a teaching profession. So therefore, you already have explored different career options, and I'm really glad that you're here today. I just want to ask a follow-up question to you. How did you find your interest in aerospace? How did you decide that you want to get into aerospace engineering?
Okay, so it's no, I always had a fascination for engineering. I mean, from
Okay.
my childhood, but I was not sure whether I would like end up studying aerospace engineering. But uh, the fascination for engineering and the rigor, the mathematical rigor, and at that point in time, like we had all these unmanned aircraft, right? So slowly picking up, right? I mean, it was quite early when I started my undergraduate program, right? So, and there was a lot of talk about how unmanned aircraft is going to change, like is going to impact a lot of applications and things like that. So that got me interested in aerospace, right? And the fact that I was, I mean, generally interested in engineering and uh, and math. So aerospace engineering was sort of a natural choice, right? So
Wow,
it came everything came together. So that was sort of a natural choice.
nice.
And yeah, so and then I stuck to it, and I'm now I mean I'm now a faculty teaching aerospace engineering. So yeah.
Wow, that's great to know. But since you mentioned some of those aspects on unmanned vehicles and all those things, let's break it down, especially for the teenagers who are like still at a very foundational level in terms of their understanding. When we say aerospace engineering, what does that really mean? If you have to explain in a simple way to the teenagers and the parents, how would you explain?
Hmm. Okay, so let me explain what aeronautical engineering is, and then I'll explain what aerospace engineering is.
And that's also a question which I keep getting from different
Yeah, so
teenagers.
what?
Like they
Yeah.
get confused between aeronautical and aerospace. So it would be really great to hear from you.
Yeah. So, aeronautical engineering is the branch of engineering that deals with the study, design, and development of vehicles, right? Both powered and unpowered vehicles uh, that travel within our Earth's atmosphere,
Okay,
right? So, so that includes aircraft, right? That includes aircraft, like some missiles, right? So that includes unmanned aircraft, military aircraft, right? So even rockets, right? So they all come under, the design and development of those systems come under aeronautical engineering, right?
got it.
Uh, Aerospace engineering is sort of a superset of aeronautical engineering, where we also deal with vehicles that travel beyond the atmosphere, right? So the launch vehicles, the launch vehicles that ISRO designs, then the design of satellites, right? Then the vehicles that are used for interplanetary travel, right? The Mars rover and things like that, right? I mean the rover that we designed to, land on the moon and things like that, right? So those come under aerospace engineering. So aerospace engineering is aerospace engineering also includes aeronautical engineering, but it deals with vehicles both within the atmosphere and vehicles that go beyond the atmosphere. So that's the primary distinction. And the other important thing to note is, aeronautical engineering or aerospace engineering has nothing to do with like piloting, right? I mean, piloting these vehicles,
Mhm.
right? You don't have to have a degree in aeronautical engineering or aerospace engineering to become a pilot, right?
Got
Or
it.
that's not the only thing that you can do by studying aeronautical engineering or aerospace engineering, right? So, the analogy would be to drive a car, you don't need to have a degree in automobile engineering, right? So that's the analogy, right? Um,
Great. That's a very simple analogy, I would say. But just to just to confirm the understanding, like the aircrafts that we fly in. So the design, the development of that comes under aeronautical.
Aeronautical engineering. Yeah,
And
correct.
aerospace is which is broader, which is all the spaceships, all the missiles, not missiles, but the what to say, the satellites and all those things comes under aerospace.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
that's
yeah, so that also includes aircraft. So aerospace engineering also includes aircraft and all these other systems.
okay. So
Right?
the broader stream is aerospace. Within that, a specialized stream is aeronautical. Okay,
Engineering.
I think that's very clear now. But if I have to ask you, when you say design and development of any aircraft, it includes multiple aspects, right? So if you
Yeah.
have to just give a quick overview of what are the different things that are involved in this end-to-end aerospace or aeronautical, like from start to end, what would that be?
Yeah. So, I'll talk about heavier than air vehicles like airplanes and things like that, right? So primarily, to keep the aircraft from falling, uh, I mean, falling away from the sky, you have to balance the gravitational forces, right? So, so how do we typically do that? We design. You all have seen the airplanes that we fly, right? It has wings, right? So it generates forces, right? Uh, like Based on how the air moves over it, right? So it generates forces so that it can balance its weight, right? So that it doesn't fall fall out of the sky, right? So that's the primary thing. So we call that aerodynamics, right? So aerodynamics is the study of is a study that deals with design of surfaces that produce forces, right? Due to uh, the flow. The airflow that goes past those surfaces, right? So that we call aerodynamics. That's one of the specializations, if you will,
Yeah, I
of
just have a question here. Sorry to interrupt. So whenever
yeah,
we
yeah,
travel, we if we sit near the window and see through the wings actually moves up and down depending on different motion and controlling
correct.
that to control the flow of air. So that's the aerodynamics part.
Yes, so no, and also how you design the wing itself, right? So what should be the shape of the wing?
Okay,
What should be its
got it.
cross section? What should be its length, width, right?
Got
And
it. Got it.
the things that you see that move around are called flaps and slats, right? So you typically see them move during takeoff and landing, right?
Hmm.
So yes, so all these aspects come under aerodynamics,
And
right?
that is one of the important aspects under aerospace.
Specialization.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Uh,
What
so
what
basically,
are the others?
how do you design the aircraft so that it can balance its weight, right?
Got
So
it.
then it has to move forward, right? So
Hmm.
then you need an equivalent of an engine, right? So
Mhm.
that can provide the necessary thrust to move forward, right?
Mhm.
So then there are like different types of engines, starting from internal combustion engines like the ones that we have in automobiles to gas turbine engines, right? So the study of those systems is called propulsion, right?
Okay.
So, so that is another important specialization. Uh, then the other important uh, part of aerospace engineering is designing the structure, right? So the entire structure has to withstand all these forces, right? Uh, because I talked about various forces that act on it, right? Due to the air flowing over it, right? And then the thrust generated by the engine. So you have to design the structure to withstand all these forces.
Got
And the
it.
important thing here is, as opposed to other systems, weight is really a premium when it comes to uh, like
Any aircraft.
any aircraft or aerospace vehicle, right? Because the heavier the system, I need more power. So everything scales up. So the important uh, uh, thing that we always keep track of when designing these vehicles is the total weight of the system. So we try to make it as light as possible. And one of the important things through which we achieve that is by designing the structure to be lightweight as well as, I mean, like, basically efficient in terms of the load carrying capacity while being light, right? So there are a lot of innovation in terms of new materials and things like that, right? So
And
that's
if I can recall this few scenes from the movie Mars Mission, they would have spoken about this, that the entire satellite should be lightweight because it has to fly for longer and efficient way. So I can totally relate to that. And I'm sharing this example because teenagers also would have seen that movie and they can
you've seen
relate
the
to
movie.
what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely. So the study of all that is called structures. Aircraft structures or aerospace structures, right? So we had seen aerodynamics, propulsion, aircraft structures. So then the other important aspect is flight dynamics and control, right? So how does the airplane, right, as a system, um, behave, right? Behave when it is disturbed, right? For instance, is it stable by itself? Let's say, the, I mean, the simple example is the pendulum, right? You put up the pendulum, a normal pendulum, right? So then it comes back to its equilibrium position, right? It's stable. So when you have an inverted pendulum, it's not stable. So if you put up it, then it does not come back to its equilibrium and so on, right? In a similar way, if you put up an airplane, does it come back to its equilibrium position or does it go unstable, right? So study of all that and how do you control it, right? How do you control it to go from point A to point B, right? So basically, designing systems to measure where it is, right? So and where to go, right? How to go.
All the signal systems and sensors. So,
Yeah. Sensors, controllers, right? Guidance systems. So those are part of flight dynamics and control, right? And then there are also other systems, right? Now, other systems in the aircraft, right? Hydraulic system, electrical system, fuel system. So there are all these other systems. So the study of all that and design of all that comes under the aircraft systems, right? So as you can see, aerospace engineering is it's a highly interdisciplinary field of engineering, right? You need pretty much every branch of engineering to design an airplane, right?
yes,
So it's
yes.
not just the aerospace engineers, right? So or to put it in another way, aerospace engineering is a highly interdisciplinary field where you need to know various branches of engineering, right?
Yes, I can clearly see that from what you explained. But I just have one question, which many teenagers ask me as well. Like in undergraduation, the 4 years like you did, do they study everything or they also pick up one of these as a specialization, or the specialization comes only in post-graduation?
No, in undergraduate degree, there is no specialization. So you will take courses on all the things that I talked about, right? And the specialization comes in your MTech or MS, right? In your postgraduate degree, because you need to have,
The
a
foundation of
good
the entire
foundation to
process. Yeah,
before you specialize, right?
got it.
Uh, yeah, so there is no specialization in undergraduate engineering in general. But there might be some institutes that might offer courses in avionics in undergraduate degrees. I'm not aware of it, but I wouldn't be surprised. Because there are master's programs in avionics and things like that, right? So,
Got it.
but in
And
general,
another question about the undergraduation part. Some colleges offer aerospace engineering degree, some colleges offer aeronautical engineering degree. So, is there any difference from these two degrees? Like someone who picked up aeronautical engineering versus aerospace engineering, will that impact in terms of opportunities for post-graduation or job opportunities?
no, not really, because I already talked about the differences between aeronautical engineering and aerospace engineering, and in terms of the curriculum, the difference is hardly 1 or 2 courses.
Okay.
I mean, if you are doing aerospace engineering, then you will take courses on orbital mechanics, spacecraft attitude dynamics and control and things like that, right? And you will study rocket propulsion in a bit more detail and so on. But I would say the difference is at most 2 courses, right? So other than that, the curriculum is quite similar.
Got it.
Um,
So now, I mean, we have covered the foundation, what it really means, what are some of the questions around the education aspect of it or education pathways. But I want to move to the career part. Like after graduating in aerospace engineering and maybe in post graduation, what are the different career paths that open up for an aerospace engineer?
okay. So like any I mean field of engineering. So I mean broadly, I mean I would start with 3 different career paths, right? So one is I mean you continue your I mean study by doing PhD. I mean if you are focused towards an academic career, right? So where you want to do PhD and then get into a research position, right?
Okay.
Or into an academic position like where I
Awesome.
am, right? So
Yeah.
so yeah, where I am. So that is one career path. The other career path is joining the industry, right? So maybe about 15, 20 years back, the aerospace industry in India was not, I mean, was not ready to observe a lot of people who came out of the colleges after finishing aerospace engineering or aeronautical engineering, because the ecosystem was not present at that point in time, right? But with the advent of unmanned aircraft, right? So that scenario changed completely, right? So one main reason why India did not have that ecosystem is because uh, so aerospace design and manufacturing, it's quite capital intensive, right? And it's very labor intensive. It takes a lot of time. So to design an aircraft engine, right, it takes about develop an aircraft engine, it takes about 35 years, right? I mean, I'm talking about the best companies in the world who
Mhm.
design that. It takes 35 years, right?
Mhm.
And you need to have those resources to invest and all that. So, I mean, India being a developing country, I mean, did not have that resources. So we
And
did not
also the
invest.
infrastructure to do that, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we did not make that investment. So we were always lagging behind the rest of the world, right? I mean, rest of the world, I mean, like
The developed
US,
countries.
yeah, US, Europe, Russia, China to some extent, right? Uh, but with the advent of unmanned aircraft, I mean, you don't need this capital intensive like manufacturing or design organizations, right? So what you see now is there are a lot of companies, right? So that are interested in designing and developing unmanned aircraft for various applications, right? I mean, starting from like law enforcement, surveillance, right? I mean, defense applications to meteorological applications. So there are a whole host of applications for which unmanned aircraft are being used. So there are a lot of these companies, and so they need people who know each of those fields that I talked about: aerodynamics, propulsion,
Mm.
flight dynamics, control structures, systems. So they need people who actually know all these, right? And there is a lot of demand for quality manpower, right? So there is a lot of demand, right? And I mean, there used to be a joke that I mean, aeronautical engineers, they I mean never go into the so-called core jobs, right? I mean that are related to aerospace engineering. They always go to some other jobs, but that scenario has changed, right? That's no longer true with all these companies, right? And even, I mean, they are not necessarily startups. So even established players, right? Established companies. So they have aerospace division, right? So where they look at design of unmanned aircraft, and So aerospace also includes rockets, missiles, and all that, right? So there is a
Yeah,
lot of demand for those systems as well. And so there are a lot of organizations that are looking for quality manpower now, right?
yeah. And
And
I
they,
just want to add one point here. Space tourism is gaining a lot of momentum and importance these days, especially like recently there have been many, what to say, uh, information about how some people are going to space on like a tour and then coming back, and Tesla, like SpaceX, and then we have multiple other companies also coming and then being a pioneer in that space. And even in India, if you see, there are a lot of startups who are building satellites and all those things. So we hear a lot about those startups getting funding and growing, because again, there's a lot of demand for us to conquer the aerospace. So I can totally relate to what you're saying, that the demand for aerospace engineering. So that's the second stream where they can get into companies and then work as an engineer in the design and the productization of those aircrafts.
yeah,
Okay.
so that by far is the, I mean, has the most opportunities, right? I mean, and then the third career path would be uh, uh, so joining organizations that are part of the government sector, right?
Okay.
Uh, like Indian Space Research Organization, Defense Research and Development Organization, National Aerospace Labs. So they are government organizations that I mean, either deal with design of launch vehicles, satellites, or design of military aircraft like fighter aircraft and things like that, right? I mean, so these are not generally done in the private sector. I mean, in our country, at least as of now. So, I mean, if I mean, so launch vehicles, yes. So there are players in the private sector who are, I mean, who are designing launch vehicles, and one of the companies that I mean that has been mentored by IIT Madras. So they have launched. I mean, last week they were successful in launching their own launch vehicle, right?
Wow, wow. Yeah, I
So
heard, I read about it, and many congratulations to
yeah, yeah.
IIT Madras for taking such big leap in in the field of aerospace.
Yeah. So, but primarily it is the forte of ISRO, right? So, who deal with design of launch vehicles and satellites. So, that is also a career path that people can take, right?
Got it. So
Uh,
currently you said three different career paths. One is research and academic oriented. One is getting into the corporates who work in the space of aerospace. And one is more related to government organizations.
Yeah, so
So,
these are the traditional, I mean, career paths
okay.
that are related to aerospace engineering. But then, I mean, again, you have other paths like, I mean, you can be entrepreneurial and you can do a startup, and I mean, that is common to, I
Other
mean,
engineering
other
streams.
engineering fields, right?
Okay.
So,
And I
yeah.
have one follow-up question on this. When you spoke about ISRO, so whenever we talk to teenagers who are interested in aerospace engineering, many people will say that I want to become a space scientist with reference to NASA or ISRO. So if they have to get into ISRO, is aerospace the only option, or is this a critical path to get into it? What's your view on that?
Uh, I mean, no. So there are all kinds of engineers in ISRO, not just aerospace engineers, because as I mentioned, so it's a highly interdisciplinary I mean, field, right?
Mhm.
And there are civil engineers, I mean, who design the structures, right? So there are mechanical engineers, there are electrical engineers. So you need computer science engineers. I mean, to write the software that goes on board. So you need all kinds of engineers. So you don't necessarily have to study aerospace engineering to go into ISRO or NASA for that matter. Uh, but if you want to, I mean, understand the system in its entirety, right? I mean, so then you have to, I mean, study aerospace engineering, right?
And if they have to work on the core parts of aircraft, then
Correct.
aerospace engineering
Yes. Yes.
is the
So, I mean, if you so if you are going to be part of the aerodynamics team, so then most likely I mean, the requirement is for you to have at least a degree in aerospace engineering, right?
Got it.
Uh,
I think that clarifies, and I think that is a question which I keep hearing, and I'm sure this would help people who are passionate about aerospace engineering. The other question I keep hearing is astrophysics, because sometimes people, when they discuss, they consider astrophysics and aerospace engineering, and then they get confused between the two. So I just want to clarify that as well for teenagers and our viewers. So what is the difference between these two?
No, astrophysics is not engineering, right? So that's a branch of science, right? So that
Mhm.
deals with I mean, study of uh, I mean, celestial bodies, right? I mean, so it deals with um, uh, like the solar system. It deals with objects in the solar
All the
system. Then,
space science, like
yeah,
studying about the science related to space is astrophysics. Aerospace is only the aircrafts or any vehicle that goes into
so
space.
man-made systems, right? So
Okay,
design of man-made systems. So they, I mean, in astrophysics, you're trying to understand, I mean, understand the state of nature as is. It's, I mean,
got it.
uh,
I think that clarifies actually. This is a man-made, that is the state of nature as it exists. You're trying to do research and study that. So I think
yeah.
that clearly differentiates, and thanks for sharing that. So now I want to focus on the skills part, because now we covered the career path. And when you introduced, you mentioned that you realized that you were strong at math, and that was one of the reasons why you also want to pursue engineering. And then subsequently, you found interest in unmanned vehicles, and then you got into aerospace. But what are some of the, especially for teenagers, because they are in the exploration stage, and they are considering whether should I go ahead with this, will I enjoy doing or being in an aerospace related profession. So, what are the two, three things that an aerospace engineer should definitely possess from skills perspective?
Hmm. I mean, there is nothing really unique. I mean, in general, I mean, if you are planning to go into any branch of engineering, I mean, you need to have an analytical bent of mind, right? So that is important, right? And aerospace engineering tends to be math heavy, right? Uh, so you have to be comfortable in math, right? So you should be comfortable with math and equations and all that, right? So uh, that is one requirement, right?
No,
So uh,
got it.
but as opposed to some other branches of engineering which are sort of abstract, right?
Mm,
So this is not so abstract. I mean, although I mean there is a lot of math involved. Uh, I mean, you can actually visualize, right? So those things.
got it.
So in that sense, it is not too abstract,
Mm,
although it is quite math heavy. Uh, Other than that, I mean, if you are going to aerospace engineering, then I mean, you have to be passionate about passionate about aircraft, spacecraft, and all these things, right? I mean, otherwise, I mean, you cannot sustain your interest for those 4 years to study, right? Because I mean, as I mentioned, I mean, it's not going to be easy those 4 years. So I mean, you should have some interest in understanding these systems, right?
Actually,
So
I was
that's
about, if you had not mentioned this, I was about to say, because one is
so
math, I know, and the most important thing is even math is a skill that they can develop
correct.
over a period
Yeah,
of
yeah,
time. It's a developable skill. The driving factor is that passion towards that. If you're really passionate about aerospace, you're fascinated by the aircrafts and the unmanned vehicles and all those things, then this is definitely a career option to consider. And
correct.
if you're not able to connect yourself with it, then it's going to be a difficult journey throughout, and also an unstable career journey, I would say. So
Yeah,
therefore, two things if I have to summarize: first is passion, and then if you're strong at math, it's an advantage to it, but it's not going to derail if you're really passionate about aerospace.
yeah.
Okay, great. So now, um, the most important question I want to ask is like people, how do they identify if they're really passionate about aerospace engineering? Like, what are the few things that you would advise to teenagers to try out or to explore? Because we strongly recommend them to keep exploring, to keep experimenting so that they can clearly see if they are passionate about a certain thing, if they're really enjoying and excited about few things. So for aerospace engineering, is there anything that teenagers can do while they're studying maybe 10th, 11th to explore if this is what they want to pursue as a career?
Um, yeah, so I mean, these days there are many hobby class unmanned aircraft, right? I mean, mostly this quadrotors and
Mm.
quadrotor drones, right? So I mean, maybe it's not very expensive, so you can get one of those and then try to, I mean, just play around with it and see, I mean, whether, I mean, you get curious about understanding how it works, right? I mean, trying to understand, okay, I mean, like why does it go up, right? And how does it move forward, right? What happens, right? And how is this whole thing controlled, right? So what happens when I mean, make changes in my in the RC controller. So if I mean if you get curious about these things, so then I mean then it means that I mean okay, so you want to learn more about these systems. So an aerospace engineering can be an option, right, for you. Or if you are passionate about spacecraft, like launch vehicles, rockets, right, missiles, and how these things work, right? So then again, I mean, so aerospace engineering would can potentially be a career choice. But so that said, I mean, even if you go into some other branch of engineering, let's say mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, right? Or civil engineering for that matter. So in your undergraduate program, so then you can actually also specialize in aerospace engineering in your master's, right? So
Mm.
since it's a interdisciplinary field, I mean, so we have students from various branches of engineering who come to do MTech or MS or PhD in aerospace engineering, right? So you don't necessarily have to like study aerospace engineering in your undergraduate program, right? I mean, even if you are passionate about all these aspects, right? If you want to sort of play it safe, and if you're not very sure, I mean, you're passionate about many things, and one of those things is like spacecraft, aircraft. So maybe you can take a broad-based field of engineering, like mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and let's say after 4 years, I mean, you feel that your passion towards so these kind of systems, the aerospace systems are more, right? So then you can specialize in aerospace engineering. That's always a possibility, right? So for people who are sort of not really sure, right? And for people who are really passionate about it, I mean, I would advise them to, I mean, go for aerospace engineering. But many people are not entirely sure, right? So for them, this would probably be a good choice, right? So do
And
something that is
that's
broad-based. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great piece of advice, Deva, I should definitely say, because many parents, are confused because the teenagers may say they're interested in aerospace, but they are not able to see that kind of fire in them when they say, I'm interested in aerospace engineering.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
you're sharing is a more broad-based approach where you're de-risking and you're allowing more time to explore and see if
correct.
they want to really get into aerospace engineering. At the same time, if people are really passionate about it, then they can directly get into aerospace engineering. And that would have helped so many parents and teenagers there. So thank you so much for that input. When you mentioned about the activities that they can do, actually a question, popped up in my mind. I also read about drone engineering a lot these days, and it is gaining a lot of importance maybe because of the same reason that you spoke. So, do you have any thought on that? So, is that also associated with aerospace or?
Um, I don't know exactly what they mean by drone engineering. I mean, so maybe that means putting together these systems. So, I mean, putting together a quad rotor, right? I mean, given the components, right? So, I mean, that is not quite difficult, right? I mean, but designing those components, I mean, to do whatever they're supposed to do, I mean, that is a challenging task. But let's say if you have all these components and putting together uh, and making it fly, so that is not a really difficult thing to do, right? So maybe that is what they mean by drone engineering. So I mean, the equivalent would be, I mean, you just disassemble your bike or your car. I mean, when you are in your school, right? So to understand what is inside the bike and things like that. So it's akin to that, maybe. I mean, I'm not entirely sure, but so that, I mean, you understand, okay, what are all the various components and how do you put it back together and things like that. Yes, so that also would help, right? I mean, so it'll give you an idea of, okay, what are all the different components, what do they do, and things like that. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. It's going little one step deeper into not just doing it as an activity, but you're going one step deeper into understanding how it works so that you're
Correct.
able to relate to it. That would be step two. So step one is just get your hands dirty. Step two is understanding how the systems work. And then you'll be able to very clearly say whether that's something you want to go deeper through education and pursue as a career. So
Yeah.
I think I'm I have covered all the questions, and I mean I must say it has been a very very insightful session based on some of the foundations, because as I said, the intent of this session is to keep it simple and cover foundational aspects for teenagers and their parents, like aerospace and aeronautical. Like people, engineers or professionals or experts definitely would understand that. But our intent is to keep it simple for teenagers. And from that perspective, you explained it in a very simple way from the foundation, covering different areas of expertise that people would cover. And you also spoke about the education pathways, the three career pathways, and also from education perspective, how they can build in flexibility. I mean, if I have to call out, like I just said the key summary, but there are so many things that you shared, and it has been really, really helpful and insightful session. I'm
Thank you.
sure teenagers and parents who are watching this now, who are going to be watching this later, would definitely benefit out of this conversation. So thank you so much for taking time, joining us, and sharing your expertise and your insights with all of us. I'm really grateful and I'm really honored to have you with us and spend this time with us today.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Prasad, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts.
Yeah.
Uh, Thank you. Thank you again.
Great. So thank you, viewers, and thank you so much for taking time. So next week, we are going to be covering another important career option. So until then, stay tuned and have a great rest of the weekend. Thank you all.